Welcome to the best podcast in baseball video edition. I'm here with Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch. I'm Jeff Gordon. Derrick has filled out his ballot for the Baseball Hall of Fame. Derrick, your assessment of this year's candidates for the Hall.
Yeah, it's a tricky ballot in the sense that, you had some names melt off. So the traffic that has congested the ballot over the last few years and really made it difficult, say, 7, 8, 10 years ago, has alleviated, and it's starting to clear a path on the 10 spots to start making some different considerations. Last year voted for Gary Sheffield, for example, but his time on the ballot ran out before he got inducted. But then you had Joe Mauer and that group, race right into the Hall of Fame, along with, when I looked at the ballot, I had 5 players returning from last year's ballot that did not get inducted and were still eligible. So that gave me 5 spots to deal with, along with newcomers who, a couple of them just really stood out from the class. And that made, so you're looking at, if I remain consistent with my ballot, keep the 5, add the 2 that stood out, and then what do I do, if anything, with the remaining 3 spots?
Well, let's take a look at those newcomers. You had your 5 you believed in, so those were the easiest picks. The next easiest pick, some tremendous candidates come aboard this time. Really some no-brainers. What was the no-brainiest of the no-brainers for you?
Well, Ichiro Suzuki. So in his first example, I like how you phrase that there. In his first time on the ballot, it's hard to think of a way, unless someone is trying to game the ballot, that Ichiro Suzuki is not the next 100% Hall of Famer. He'll be the first position player to get all of the votes if he does, joining Mariano Rivera. So he stands out. I mean, you're talking about 4,300 hits, almost 4,400 hits as a pro, 3,000 hits in the majors, 10 consecutive Gold Gloves, a feat to start a career in the majors matched only by Nolan Arenado. When you think about a guy who won it as a rookie and then held down a position with a golden defense for a decade. So he stands out, and he joins the 5 guys that I had carried over: Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Chase Utley, and the reliever Billy Wagner. So that makes 6, which then gets us into the look at the 4 spots. And CC Sabathia, as far as a starting pitcher goes from his era, certainly the Cardinals got an eye full of him when he was traded to the Brewers and what he did with Milwaukee there. We saw, of course, a great career with the Yankees, championship, Cy Young, a lot to like about what CC Sabathia brings. So I voted for him as well, and that gave me 7 spots. And I could have stopped there, but I started looking deeper into CC Sabathia's career and started finding things that, compare pretty favorably with a few other candidates on the ballot.
And those were some pitchers who
Yeah.
pitched for a long time and were successful.
Yeah. One of the things about this ballot is you have to, especially this year, is you have to compare like peak years, like who was great for a significant amount of time and who was really good for a long amount of time. And this ballot really offers you a way to define how you look at those players. If you want to go like peak years, you got Dustin Pedroia, right? Rookie of the Year, MVP, great player, had his career really slowed, significantly slowed, and then ended by injury. You also have at the same position, you also have Mizzou made Ian Kinsler at second base. And then, of course, you have Chase Utley. I voted for Chase Utley, and his peak years, I mean, you'll think about from 2005 to 2011, wins above replacement. Chase Utley had a 49.3, Jeff. That was second in baseball. Would you like to guess who was 1? I'll give you 0, or I'll give you 1 guess as to who was number 1 from 05 to 11. He called St. Louis home.
Well,
yeah. So, I mean, you're talking about some pretty significant company there. Or you can go with bulk, right? And Mark Burley has a tremendous long career. He had that long streak of 200 innings. And as I looked at, Andy Pettitte, another guy who has October, almost a full career, or not career, but a full season in October to draw from. And so as I looked at CC Sabathia, look, he stood out. But did he stand out above what Mark Burley did for his career, what Andy Pettitte did for a winning team and then had performed in October, or what Felix Hernandez did in this tight, compact career before it was ended by injury? I looked at some of their best decades, and Felix Hernandez had a 10-year stretch where he was 138.91 with a 3.06 ERA. He was 29% better than anybody else in the league, any other starting pitcher, and a 4.72 ERA, or I'm sorry, 4.72 WAR. If you look at CeCe's best 10 years, he had a 47 WAR in that time. He was 30% better than everybody else in the league. Pettit and Burley a little bit less in their best 10 years, but still pretty standout. And so I think as we look at how to deal with starters and how to look at them as 300 wins drips down to 200 wins being kind of the line, dips down into like, what do we do with the current model for starting pitchers? I think we need some more time to talk about it. I think we need to take another look at some of the guys who are on the ballot. Maybe go, what did we miss with Tim Hudson's career? What are we going to do with John Lester? What are we going to do with Adam Wainwright? How are we going to look at their careers through a modern lens where the starting pitching role has changed so much? As we honor relievers and the short burst excellence, do we also need to look at what we do with starters and maybe a decade of dominance?
Well, that's Derrick Goold. I'm Jeff Gordon. This has been the best podcast in baseball, video edition. Stay tuned. Down the road, more videos, more content on our website, stltoday.com. Thanks for supporting local journalism. Until next time, see you later.
Thank you, Jeff.